Thank you, Mr. Popov. First, before I start my speech, I'd like to give you the book, the volume number 1, which I composed on terrorism and the role of Russia in fighting terrorism. Actually, this is volume 1, based on interviews, live interviews with some extremists and terrorists in both Syria and Iraq. I had access to interview some of them in the prisons, thanks to the Iraqi and the Syrian governments. The ideology is that they used to have actually briefs everything behind who is supporting them. Some of them, they fight, they don't know that they are fighting the Syrian army or in Syria. They believe that they are fighting in Israel. Some of them, they don't speak anything related to Islam even. They have nothing to do with Islam. Some of them, they are criminals and drug traffickers and drug dealers. This is the part of the conclusion of the book based on these interviews. Some of them are coming to fight in Iraq and Syria because they want to have the state of Islam, which actually does not exist in the time being, only in their dreams, because they do not believe in what they are doing. The factors behind their existence in both Syria and Iraq were many. Some of them were social, some of them were economic, some of them were psychological factors even behind this. Some of them were facing problems in their own countries because their countries were cracking down on them politically and militarily and security reasons. So all of this pushed them to go and fight somewhere else in Iraq and Syria, and some of them are in Libya now. Anyways, the book is volume number 1, based on interviews with these terrorists in Arabia. I'm not talking about Syria and Iraq. Maybe later on I'm going to have something else in Arabia, and maybe in Egypt, in Libya, whoever. But it proved out that the same mentality of these terrorists plans that there is one mastermind behind them. Believe me, it's not a regional power. It's not a regional power. A regional power cannot mastermind for the whole world. It only controls its own borders. What is behind these terrorists is a big plan, a big intelligence agency which plans for 100 years from now. And you know what I mean by that. Some of them have meetings with some CIA officers in Syria and in Iraq before they started their attacks. Some of them were trained in camps, and the officers were former CIA and Pentagon officers. Some of them came from different backgrounds. So not all of them are the same. Of the terrorists that I met, actually, maybe 75% of them came from societies which are really poor. 25% of them have, let's say, middle to upper class level. More than 80% of them are illiterate. 20% or less are literate. Those masterminds are those literate ones. And unfortunately, those who are the masterminds are not local. They are from other countries, mastering these terrorists and extremists in both countries. So let's talk about the CVE. What is that? The counter-violence extremism strategy that we should have, at least in this group or in other groups, to combat and fight back against these terrorists. Just I want to remind you of what Osama bin Laden once said after the collapse of the 2 Twin Towers in New York, 2001. When he said that our war with our enemy has just started, and our war with our enemy is 75% based on media. That's why if you want to combat, to counter their narratives, you have to depend on media rather than depending on arms and equipments and military forces. This would solve a part of the issue or contain it, but it will not eradicate it from their minds. In other words, we should concentrate on education, number one, how to restructure education system, and thank God that we have started already in our country, in Jordan. And second one is that we have to focus on media and its own influence on people's minds, especially social media. As most of us now, 80% of our communication is coming through the social media networks, WhatsApp, Facebook, Viber, and so on. And see how these guys, how these terrorists recruit. They recruit, most of them, the so-called lone wolves, via Twitter, via Facebook, via social media, to act for their own benefits. And I wish when you read part of this book, you would get these live interviews and you get benefit how these people think. Thank you so much.
Спасибо.